I mean, the Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first two games and was playing on one leg, and we didn't have home court. And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that. Now, it was in the bubble, and anything could happen in the bubble. There's no home court. Game 7 would have been in L.A., but it just happened. So I would say with me, some of them is I got to do better always. I always take my own responsibility. And then some of it is circumstances happen. This one, let's win it, and we don't have to talk about it.
The Sixers just announced that Joel Embiid suffered a right orbital fracture and a mild concussion in that closeout game victory against Toronto on Thursday. They say he is out indefinitely. He got hit in the face by an inadvertent elbow there from Pascal Siakam. Game 1 against the Heat is Monday.
This was the worst thing that could have happened to the Philadelphia 76ers. And to be honest, I guess this is a little bit of a bold take. It was so unnecessary. I don't think this should have happened to begin with. I think it was unnecessary on multiple fronts. We're going to get to all of it in just a second, because now we don't know what the future of the Philadelphia 76ers is going to look like. Yes, because the injury that was suffered and the injury in question has one of the most unpredictable recovery times out of all injuries. Now, before we get to the content, $500 giveaways are back. All you have to do is subscribe and turn on our notifications on this channel for a chance to win $500. We also started live streaming again on twitch.tv/TF microphone. So if you want to pull up and tell me how much you dislike me as a human being to my face, that's the best way to do so on twitch.tv/TF microphone. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Doc Rivers has this reputation in the NBA playoffs where he's notorious for his inability to close out 3-1 series leads. As a matter of fact, there's a whole list. In 2003, 2009, and 2015, he blew a 3-1 series lead. Now in 2009, 2010, 2012, he blew a 3-2 series lead. Now during this past series, he was up 3-1 versus Toronto, which resulted in him actually being questioned about his inability to close 3-1 series leads in the past, and he was absolutely livid when he was asked about it.
Well, it's easy to use me as an example, but I wish y'all would tell the whole story with me, all right? My Orlando team was the 8th seed. No one gives me credit for getting up against the Pistons who won the title. That was an 8th seed. Go look at I want you to go back and look at that roster. I dare you to go back and look at that roster, and you would say, what a hell of a coaching job. Really. I mean, the Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first two games and was playing on one leg, and we didn't have home court. And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that. Now, it was in the bubble, and anything could happen in the bubble. There's no home court. Game 7 would have been in L.A., but it just happened. So I would say with me, some of them is I got to do better always. I always take my own responsibility. And then some of it is circumstances happen. This one, let's win it, and we don't have to talk about it.
So as a result of it, I know this is going to sound a little silly, you could say that Doc Rivers was a little bit more conservative or aggressive, I don't know which one it is in this instance, when it came to playing his best players during the tail end of the Philadelphia 76ers final playoff game versus the Toronto Raptors. Now, during this period, the Toronto Raptors are currently down 29 points. Yes, of course, they have the ball, but if you take a look at who's in for the Philadelphia 76ers, it's primarily their starters. I mean, you have Joel Embiid, then you have James Harden, you have Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris is currently on Pascal Siakam. So for the most part, despite being up 29 points with 4 minutes left to go in the game, where you could make an argument that there is a pretty comfortable cushion for the Philadelphia 76ers, Doc Rivers left all of his starters in. Now, what bothers me about this is the fact that one of his players, his star player, as a matter of fact, Joel Embiid, Embiid has a reputation for, well, during at least the beginning of his career and more recently, he hasn't necessarily had the greatest ability to stay healthy. And that's nothing against Joel Embiid. The NBA is a very, very rigorous league, and when you're 7 feet, 280 pounds, and you're asked to play 82 games in a season, and then play very intense playoff basketball, well, no wonder why some teams are opting for load management for their players. Now, if you look at Joel Embiid's history, this will further support my argument. During the 2016 NBA season, he played 31 games. During the 2017 season, he played in 31 games. 2018, he played 63 games. 2019, he played 64 games. 2020 and 2021, last year, he played 51 games. And this year, he actually played the most games in an NBA season in his entire career, 68 games. So he has this reputation of not necessarily being able to stay on the court. And that just is what it is. You need to do your best as a head coach to make sure that you could rest Joel Embiid where it's possible. Because I'm going to be honest, this kind of brings me back to when Derrick Rose unfortunately hurt himself against, ironically, the Philadelphia 76ers 10 years ago and altered his career forever as a result of Tom Thibodeau leaving him for way too long. Now, on top of that, I'm going to be honest, what Pascal Siakam did here was a little dirty. If you guys haven't seen the play, take a look at the play. Pascal Siakam kind of seems like, I don't know if Pascal Siakam tried to elbow Joel Embiid on purpose in the eye. It's an NBA game after all. Things could be very sped up. Things could be very, very quick. But regardless, an elbow to the freaking eye happened, and as a result, Joel Embiid not only suffered a mild concussion, which of course, when you hear mild concussion, you're like, oh, okay, he's gonna be back in a day or two. But he also suffered an orbital fracture. Now, an orbital fracture, for those of you guys that don't know, it's pretty much a fracture to the eye socket. As a result of this, according to Shams Charania, and this is gonna sound really freaking bad, Joel Embiid, who suffered a right orbital fracture and mild concussion in the series clinching Game 6 win last night in Toronto, will be listed as out, and there is no timetable for his return. Now, I want to make something very, very clear for you guys. The reason why there's no timetable for his return is because orbital fractures are one of the most unpredictable injuries to ever treat in all of sports. I mean, if you do some simple research, here's the conclusions that you'll get from multiple websites. Orbital floor strength is regained 24 days after repair. The authors now let patients resume normal activities approximately 3 weeks after uncomplicated orbital floor fracture repair. Now, if the injuries are moderate, this could go up to 6 weeks. And there's even one article that says this could keep going for several years. So you don't know how long Joel Embiid could be out. And knowing him and just the situation he's in, given the fact that this is probably the best chance he's ever had to win a championship in his entire career and the best team that has ever been built around him in his entire career, I'm assuming he's going to do whatever he possibly can to get back onto the basketball court as soon as possible. Now, the problem here is the fact that you don't know how long until he could actually make it back onto the court safely. And when you combine that with the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers need to face off against the top seed in the East next in the Miami Heat, and one of my favorite battles was going to be watching Bam Adebayo go up against Joel Embiid, well, it's just really unfortunate because now Joel Embiid is not going to be able to play for at least, at the very minimum, I'm assuming the first 3 games of the series. Maybe he's able to come back for Game 4. This is just my own prediction, assuming it's the best case scenario. And I don't want to say that the Philadelphia 76ers are screwed, but this is a very difficult situation to be in if you're a 76ers fan. Now, of course, there's memes going around saying James Harden is so excited about being able to chuck up as many shots as he possibly can. He was starting to kind of regain his form a little bit with the Philadelphia 76ers, but now they're going to be looking towards him and Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris to pick up the load, which I think they're capable of doing. If they're able to win like 1 game or maybe 2 games possibly without Joel Embiid, then I really like their chances moving forward. But what I think is going to happen is Miami possibly takes the first 2 games at home, and then it swings back to Philadelphia. And if they win Game 3, then great, and they could buy themselves some more time. But if they don't, then that could potentially be the end of their season. So things are really heating up for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I want a 76ers fan to let me know, are you annoyed at Doc Rivers at all whatsoever for leaving his starters in while he's up 29 points with 4 minutes left to go in the 4th quarter? Do you think that was necessary at all? Do you think he was just doing that because he had this reputation of, again, blowing 3-1 series leads and he didn't want another opportunity for the Toronto Raptors to potentially get back into it. After all, there's no way he could know that one of his players is about to get injured just by leaving him in. But at the same time, you have to admit, I don't think it was really necessary. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.